very good evening to you on this 6th day of January 2024, the first Monday of the month of the year 2025, actually. Some of us seem to be getting a little confused. 2025 is the year. Good evening and welcome to the Daily Report. My name is George Maringa. On sign language interpretation is Rhoda Nyamai. As we begin the week, the month and the year, tonight we look at the 2025 political entry. It is Monday, and on Power and Politics we speak to two gentlemen. We'll be hosting them live for a conversation, candid conversation on the 2025 political entry. I'm talking about Professor Peter Kagwanja. He is a policy advisor, strategist and analyst, as well as a Professor Gitile Naituli, a political analyst as well. We shall be hearing from these distinguished gentlemen, these eminent professors, on what the political entry of 2025 ought to be like. We shall also be looking at where we've come from 2024 and where we are in 2025 and what we would portend in 2025 and beyond. Welcome to the broadcast. We invite your feedback at TV47 News, at George Maringa _ is where you can find us. The numbers, WhatsApp as well as SMS lines will be on your screens shortly. But before then, here are the highlights. Tonight,
it was really a trauma, but now that he has come, hiyo mambo yote shida na nini, let us just keep it behind us.
Abducted youth released as Kibet bulls and cohorts' whereabouts remain unknown. Tension filled Nairobi's CBD as a group of women gathered to voice their anger over the escalating abduction crisis gripping the nation.
And in areas where there are not enough, there is an amalgamation of the primary teachers who are being, moved up to teach the JSS classes.
Also tonight, Education CS Julius Migos now says primary teachers to step in for junior secondary learners amid shortage as parents raid a number of schools for redress. Plus,
so it doesn't matter which party you come with. What matters is the person and the character. And that person, look at the young people.
The older folks also are trying to safeguard the space they have occupied.
We examine the evolving approach to politics by Kenya's young Turks compared to the political landscape of earlier generations. Are their strategies proving effective? We thank you for choosing TV47 to inform you as always, and I should have started by wishing you a happy new year from wherever you're watching us. We're broadcasting live from the headquarters of Cape Media Limited in Kenya's capital, Nairobi. Thank you so much for joining us. Let's get the show on the road, shall we? And tonight, learning activities for both primary and secondary schools officially resumed today after the December break. However, the reopening of schools across various parts of the country was overshadowed by multiple challenges, with many parents raising concerns over the lack of adequate classrooms for the grade 9 students. Chichi Josephine opens our broadcast tonight with that report.
A beehive of activities was witnessed in different schools as learners reported back to school for the first term of 2025. Although with significant disruptions in some institutions. In Nairobi County, Gatoto School in Mukuru Karoben was thrown into chaos when government officials led by the area chief stormed the school, attempting to take over its management from private donors.
Mtu anainuka na self-interest zake, anataka kugrab shule, kwa sababu shule haimpatii pesa. Sababu shule haimpatii kitu cha mfuko. Hiyo hatukubaliani nayo.
Hizo miaka zote hatujaisikia any process. Wazazi ukiwauliza hawajaitwa meeting. Unaona? Hawana any information on how the school moved kutoka a community school to a public school.
Elsewhere, drama unfolded throughout the day at AIC Kithimani Primary School in Yatta, where angry parents stormed the school to protest high school fees and the removal of the head teacher, accusing him of mismanagement.
Madam alikuwa hapa na tuko na shida yote.
Pale kwa maofisi yake pale tunasikia shule ya IC imeendaiwa. Na pesa tulimpea hakulipa. Sasa tunajiuliza hii shule ikiendelea hivyo si shule itaisha kabisa.
Business was unusual at Mugwongo School in Marmanet, Laikipia County, as parents organized protests demanding the removal of the school's headmaster Charles Moneke amidst claims of poor administration.
Mimi nilitoka hii shule mwaka 2004 na ile choo niliwacha pale mpaka wa leo haijajengwa ingine, watoto wanaenda wanaanguka ndani. Hiyo nini kwa pale kusaidia?
Kuna mtoto ambaye amewahi pata fedha yenye mashule yale mengine yanapewa ya JSS. Juu hapa kuna wakati niliingia hapa kwa ofisi nikauliza mwalimu mkuu. Akaniambia ile pesa serikali na tuma kwa kila mwanafunzi wa JSS ni shilingi 12.
In Bungoma, DEB Primary School's head teacher Tobias Kissa highlighted severe infrastructural challenges facing the school despite receiving funding for the classrooms at the end of last year. Kissa noted that 500 learners who should have transitioned to Form 1 have nowhere to continue their education.
Tuko na watoto 548 junior 9 ambao wanakaa kwa streams. Tumewaweka kwa streams 8 kwa sababu hatuna madarasa ya kutosha. Kila darasa linatakiwa watoto 45, lakini sisi wangali wanakaa watoto 60 kwa sababu ya idadi.
In a rejoinder, Education CS Julius Ogamba now says some primary school teachers will step in to teach the junior secondary school learners due to the shortage.
The teachers have also been availed. We did we've done almost 76,000 teachers for JSS, and in areas where they are not enough, there is an amalgamation of the primary teachers who are being, moved up to teach the JSS classes depending on their competencies.
Chichi, Josephine, TV47.
Thank you, Chichi. One after another, 4 young men who had been abducted last year have been reunited with their families. The police service, in a statement, has noted that it will offer the 4, who include Bernard Kavuli, Peter Mutete, Ronnie Kiplagat and Billy Mwangi, the support they require. As Stanley Nyaringita reports, the police service has further noted that it is investigating all cases of missing persons. This even as the whereabouts of Steve Kivango and Kelvin Mufoni are still unknown.
Wailing, confusion and immense joy. That is how abductee Billy Mwangi was received this morning in Majengo, Embu County. His mother, Regina Wairimu, clung to him, tears streaming freely as relatives and friends celebrated his safe return more than 2 weeks after his disappearance. The 24-year-old blogger was abducted on December 21st, 2024 by alleged 4-hooded men while waiting in line for a haircut.
First sana tunashukuru Mungu kwa sababu mtoto alikuja saa 2, nisikia mtu kwa gate mtoto anaitana mama fungua. Sasa ndio kafungua nikaona he's okay.
Mpaka saa hii we have not recovered from that happiness because it was really a trauma, but now that he has come, hiyo mambo yote shida na nini, let us just keep it behind us.
Meanwhile, in Kajiado County, emotions were similarly high as Bernard Kavuli arrived at Ngong's Moi Bridge police station. His family's relief was palpable as Kavuli stepped out of a car, ending the grueling search for him.
Changu siku ya leo ni kuwashukuru marafiki zote wa Bernard, kwa X, kwa mtandao yote, pastors, kila mtu yoyote mwenye alitusaidia financially, maombi, kututembelea. Tunitembelewa na watu wengi sana kwa ajili ya ndugu yangu mdogo. Nasema nina furaha mingi sana nikiwa mbele yenu, na ninawashukuru nyinyi wote, mpaka hata viongozi wa kwetu huko nyumbani Ukambani, na washukuru mahali wako wote. Mungu awabariki.
Well, for now our client pleads and requests that you accept his request to keep mum. Let him just go take a cold shower I mean, hata yeye aweze kulala kwa kitanda kama wewe.
This even as the National Police Service has confirmed that Kavuli, Mwangi, as well as Peter Muteti and Ronnie Kiplangat have reunited with their families. Furthermore, the Office of Inspector General of Police has vowed to offer support to the young men and their families. Reports further indicate that caricaturist Kibet Bull was released Monday morning, despite the police not indicating his whereabouts. This comes as the High Court is expected to hear all cases filed against Inspector General of Police Douglas Kanja on the 8th of January regarding the abductions of this man last year. Stanley Nyerengita, TV47.
Tonight, despite the release of 4 abductees from different parts of the country Monday morning, a section of Kenyans staged peaceful demonstrations in Nairobi and other major towns in protest against abductions of anti-government individuals. In Nairobi, a group of women dressed in sackcloths marched through the streets of Nairobi city, calling on government to stop the alleged abductions. Mike Kagwango reports.
Nairobi City was for the better part of Monday engulfed with protesting scenes, including women who staged prayers aimed to end the ongoing abductions in the country. While dressed in sackcloths, a section of women marched through the streets of the city, denouncing abduction cases witnessed in the recent past. For the second time, the city was filled with anti-abduction placards since Kenyans decided to take action Monday last week. Activists led by Njeri Mwangi traversed across the city streets, showing their displeasure in the manner the government has handled the abduction cases.
These same people are the same ones who are picking us, snatching us from our homes, from our neighborhoods, from our places of work, and that should completely come to an end. So on behalf of the parents who are looking for their children, who've been looking for their children, we are asking, please release these children.
Citing lack of transparency from security agencies, the activists asked President William Ruto's government to act with speed and bring the abductors to book.
We live in a free country, and that's the way it must be. We must protect our country. We must protect our country.
This as 4 Kenyan youths who were reportedly abducted in December 2024 were on Monday morning released from different parts of the country. The activists further accused the police officers of allegedly interfering with their demonstrations, despite obtaining permission to hold the protests.
This evil system, these evil rulers in power, yes, they are evil. They are very evil.
Nonetheless, the activists committed to put pressure on the government to put an end to the horrible conduct and uphold the law if anyone is found responsible. Mike Kagwango, TV47, Nairobi.
Thank you, Mike. Tonight, pressure mounts on members of parliament to draft laws ensuring high-level security for IEBC officials. This follows the horrific events early Sunday morning at the home of the late Aisha Abubakar, a senior IEBC official in Kilifi County. As Kinto Wafula reports, the deceased has been laid to rest and her family is now calling for justice.
This is the road leading to the house of the late IEBC official in Utangi Mkunguni area of Mombasa County. To enhance security, a gate stands here, guarding the path to the residential area and finally to the home where the tragic break-in took place, leading to the cold-blooded murder of the IEBC manager. The somber expression on the faces of those gathered here speak volumes of the heartbreak and disbelief surrounding this bitter reality.
Si wizi wa kawaida uliotokea. Ni wizi ambao ulichanganyikana na mauaji ambao ilikuwa imepangwa. Nia ilikuwa si wizi, nia ilikuwa ni mauaji.
The IEBC through its CEO Marjan Hussein Marjan expressed immense shock at the loss. In a statement to the media, the commission hailed the deceased for her integrity in service. Marjan, who visited the late officer's home, called for an expedited and thorough investigation to uncover the motive behind the crime.
They stole a couple of things, including official tools that are being used and documents. So we cannot rule out that probably there is something to do with that.
Political leaders from the region voiced their sorrow, calling for stronger laws to guarantee the security of IEBC officials.
Kama hawa viongozi wenye tunapigiwa kura tunapewa ulinzi wa kutulinda kwa miaka 5. Itakuwaje hawa wanaoganya mkate hawana ulinzi wowote?
Wahakikishe kwamba wale waliotenda kitendo hichi wamepatikana, kwa sababu wakikosa kufanya hivyo inaonekana hii hali itaendelea.
Na basi tunaisema kwamba tunaiomba serikali waweze kumtafuta perpetrator, na iwapo atapatikana basi achukuliwe hatua.
Kinto Wafula, TV47, Mombasa.
Indeed, now tonight, former Prime Minister Raila Odinga's campaign for the African Union Commission chairmanship has entered the home stretch ahead of the next month's election in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia next month. President William Ruto, who left the country for Ghana to attend President-elect John Dramani Mahama's inauguration on Tuesday, is expected to engage his fellow heads of state to support Odinga's bid. And as Apollo Kamau reports, Odinga has secured the support of Mauritius Prime Minister Navichandra Ramgoolam.
President William Ruto and former Prime Minister Raila Odinga stepped up their campaigns for the Africa Union Commission vote in Addis Ababa next month as campaigns for the coveted seat enter the home stretch. Ruto, who left the country for Ghana to attend the inauguration of President-elect John Dramani Mahama, is expected to engage fellow heads of state to support Odinga's candidacy.
The Right Honorable Raila Odinga is not a candidate for Kenya. He is a candidate for East Africa. And before we rolled out his candidature, we went to Mzee Yoweri Kaguta Museveni as the elder of our region. We spoke to all the East African heads of state, and we confirmed that we had the right candidate with the right credentials to be able to champion the unity, the progress, and the success of Africa as a continent.
While President Ruto was busy leaving, Odinga was thousands of kilometers away in the island nation of Mauritius, where he secured the support of the country's Prime Minister, Dr. Navichandra Ramgoolam. On his X account, Odinga thanked the PM for his unequivocal support towards his candidature.
Sisi kama ODM, sisi kama watu ya upande hii jirani, tunashukuru vile umesaidia baba kwa hii safari yake ya kwenda African Union. Na vile mimi naona Mungu akitujalia atafaulu. Unajua wewe, nimesikia hata kama tulikupinga sana, nimesikia ile kitu wewe umeendesha inafaulu. Ulisimama 97, ulipata MP huko anguka. Ukasimama deputy president, ulipata. President hii ya baba pia ukipata, tutasema Mungu ni mwema. Mungu ni mwema sana tena. Kwa sababu hiyo itakuwa kasi yako. Hiyo ndio itakuwa one of your legacies. Ya kwamba baba yangu Raila Amolo Odinga umemsaidia akuwe chairman ya African Union. Na baada ya hiyo tutarudi Camp David. Hapa tu. Hatuwezi enda Kisumu Camp David.
Ramgoolam confirmed his support for Odinga in a November 2024 phone call with President Ruto after he became the country's new prime minister, forcing Mauritius AUC candidate Anil Gayan to withdraw from the race. Odinga is facing two opponents, Mahamoud Yusuf of Djibouti and Richard James of Madagascar. Apul Kamau, TV47.
Thank you, Apollo, for that report. A blooming dalliance between President William Ruto and former Prime Minister Raila Odinga has shifted the political direction of Luo Nyanza. As Moige William reports, President William Ruto has turned to the lakeside for political consolation amidst an onslaught in the Mount Kenya region led by his former deputy Rigathi Gachagua. This has forced the president to bank on the Nyanza and Western regions as his power move in securing a second term. Take a look.
Such was the reception of President William Ruto in Kondele, Kisumu County on November 26, 2024. The charged crowd welcoming Ruto to his seemingly new political turf. The warmth by the people of the lakeside, replacing the spot of Mount Kenya region, which has now turned cold towards the Kenya Kwanza administration, following the bitter fallout between President Ruto and former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua.
Mimi nataka niwaambie watu wa Homa Bay, tumekubaliana ya kwamba ile siasa ya zamani ya kugawanya watu, ya ukabila, ya chuki, ya migawanyiko, tutazika katika kaburi la sahau, tuunganishe Kenya. Kenya iwe moja.
Mtu alidanganya sisi na Biblia. Na mnajua alitudanganya. Anaita nyinyi tena anadanganya nyinyi. Mnapiga ndugu yenu. Sasa mko na shida na hawa. Mtaonana na hii watu.
The vote reached Mount Kenya region, now a hostile ground towards the William Ruto administration. President Ruto, in the last quarter of 2024, will make numerous inroads within the Nyanza and Western region, ignoring events in Mount Kenya.
Of course, Ruto would want to consolidate his power for 2027, and he thinks by getting Western Kenya, which is Mudavadi and Vanila's staff, he can more than compensate for the loss of Mount Kenya.
I read so much of politics in his visits because tuliguza Mrima, and now tuliguza Mirima, and we want to invest in the lake.
His visit we have to appreciate, and we all know it's geared towards the next election.
The Nyanza region welcomed President Ruto with open arms as some of his charm offensives, such as the support for former Prime Minister Raila Odinga's African Union Commission chairperson candidature, working the magic, winning the support of the region.
Mimi naona venye wanafanya kazi ni mzuri. Kama mimi naona kama wanafanyia Wakenya kazi mzuri. Juu amani ni kitu ya muhimu.
Kuanzia hii mambo ya broadbase iliingia, tumeona kazi inatendeka.
Price mzuri kabisa. Tunaweza muunga mkono. Anafanya kazi watu vizuri kabisa, hana upanguzi.
However, political pundits opine the newfound political support for Ruto is a wrong strategy move if he is to seek re-election in 2027, as the votes of Nyanza and Western are not dependable or as many as of Mount Kenya region.
I think Ruto has calculated well, and for Nyanza, especially for Nyanza, I think he's backed the region, he's backed the vote. So no doubt that the law will support William Ruto in 2027.
The election was to be called today. Maybe I might not vote him, but if in the next few years some changes might come and we can see good things.
It is still early to speculate. We want to see the body language of the president. At the same time, we also want to see how he's going to handle our experts that he took to help him actually run the government. If the marriage is smooth, definitely, we may think otherwise.
2027 fast approaching. The Nyanza and Western region bagged in Ruto's basket. The mountain remains to be a political migraine for the president.
Ile shida ilifanya mimi nakosana na William Ruto ni kujaribu kugawanya Mount Kenya into two, na nikamwambia haiwezekani, kwa sababu tukikubali kugawanywa tumeisha. Our strength is our unity.
Moige William, TV47.
Thank you, Moige, for that report. Political realignment and campaign financing have been identified as major stumbling blocks for young politicians vying for office. Despite many of them currently navigating a challenging political environment, the question of whether they can retain their seats remains a pressing concern. Our reporter Paul Kirobi engaged with several young MPs and senators currently holding office to better understand their struggles. Take a look.
Because even if you come with a party that you don't like, or even if you come with a party that is in opposition, look at it now. The opposition is in government. So it doesn't matter which party you come with. What matters is the person and the character. And that person, look at the young people.
The older folks also are trying to safeguard the space they have occupied. The MPs in that parliament who have been there for over 30 years, you know, and they are not willing to cede that ground for the younger politicians.
Kiambu Senator Karungo Athang'wa is one of the few political leaders who have defied the odds, rising from a member of the county assembly to being an elected senator. His journey through the political landscape showing a lot of courage and a persistence to overcome the many obstacles in his path. However, there is a dark cloud hanging over youth leadership as young people strive to challenge the status quo controlled by seasoned political figures in the country.
The voters, they are the one. I never had a godfather. I never had anybody to hold my hand and tell me I'm going to walk with you, I will teach you how politics it is. Nobody. And that's why I'm so free at heart today to speak my mind. Because if I was held by somebody, if somebody lifted me up, I'll be reporting back to him or to her.
The issue of political realignment has become another barrier for young political leaders as they struggle to form direct connections with powerful figures or presidential candidates. Senator Karungo recalls how his election was met with a lot of challenges during the 2017 general election.
Political realignment affects young people because probably they did not have an opportunity to know that big man. You know, like in 2017, when I was running for senator, I did not know anybody in the national government. The biggest person I knew at that particular time was the governor candidate, who was Governor Waititu at that particular time in Kiambu, was also an aspirant. I did not know anyone beyond there. So when they did what they did to me by, you know, stealing my votes and giving it to somebody else, they did that because I did not have that network. But let me tell you, times have changed. You do not need the network. All we want is to affirm IEBC so that IEBC can have a very transparent and accountable election process.
It's a question of political patronage. You know how politics is organized around individuals. So sometimes when you fall out with a particular political figure, it also translates to votes. I'll give you the case of the late Ken Okoth. Ken Okoth was almost losing his seat at some point because he came out quite strongly, and at some point it appeared like he was actually overstepping the spaces that were accommodated to him in, say, a party like ODM. But fortunately, he had literally entrenched himself so nicely on the ground that he was able to overcome the whole question of political patronage.
During election cycles, aspiring politicians face the daunting task of raising funds to secure party tickets. The cost of obtaining a party ticket varies based on the party's influence in the region. According to Bernard Kitur, Member of Parliament for Nandi Hills, this practice sets a dangerous precedent, encouraging corruption once MPs are elected to represent their constituencies.
Or in any case, once you get into power, they will deduct from you. Like right now, I think I pay, is it 20 or 30,000 shillings every month. For the entire period, I'll be a member of parliament. So, and this goes to running the political party. So, I wish, and it's my plea, that political parties must give the young or the youth tickets for free.
Political analysts argue that the language of sycophancy is slowly fading as many young leaders are finding new ways to generate income and build their popularity outside traditional political systems. Gitonga Mukunji, a first-term Member of Parliament for Manyata, was elected at just 35 years of age. He discusses the shifting dynamics within the political arena where realignments take place and how youth face challenges due to the rising divide between hustlers and political dynasties.
Not the age of Kibaki, where there was this mafias, Kiambu mafias. No, they're not there. At where somebody would speak.
Anthony Buluma, the CEO of Kenya Young Parliamentarians Association, emphasizes that the future of young political leaders hinges on their ability to mobilize the younger generation around relatable issues.
I feel like the future will really be determined by the agenda we identify today that can be able to mobilize the young generation to vote for younger people. Because if you look at even the statistics, as at last elections, they say the voter turnout amongst young people was the poorest in the history of this country. And it's always been like that because young people don't have motivation to go and vote. So it is upon us to redefine this, to challenge this narrative.
Some seasoned MPs, such as Honorable Didymus Baraza, believe that by 2032, the old guard will step aside to make room for young MPs to take the reins.
Of young members of parliament who began their politics during Kibaki's regime would be taking over the reins of this country from that generation that I can say still harbors some remnant of colonial mindset. You know, those senior politicians who learned their politics under the armpits of Khan.
Bernard Kitur believes that if young MPs become more involved in parliamentary committees, they will gain the experience necessary to excel in leadership and governance. The political storm brewing in the country comes at a time when the Gen Z appears disillusioned with the current leadership. Even though the road to become an elected leader in Kenya is bumpy and requires a lot of resources, young political leaders still have hope they will shape the politics of this country. Paul Kirobi, TV47, KICC, Nairobi.
And of course, thank you so much, Paul Kirobi, for that report, which will also be shaping part of our conversation tonight with my guests. Professor Peter Kagwanja is already here in studio, as well as Professor Naituli, to further see how the 2025 political landscape looks like. You're watching The Daily Report. Please do stay with us. We will be back shortly.
This December, learn about safety precautions to take into consideration this season.
If you can remember, if you drive on a motorcycle often, to make sure that you have a helmet, it's key to decreasing the severity of the accidents.
We are passing in a bus from Kakamega to Mombasa. In between, just stand up, stretch your legs, and even when you are seated, keep pumping your feet, keep moving your feet to avoid that long stasis of blood in the veins.
Healthier options for you to maintain a balanced lifestyle amid the holiday hustle.
Eating healthy really doesn't mean that you have to deprive yourself, but we really just have to factor on how to strike a balance. Portion control and moderation are very key. Let us enjoy the season, and at the same time, let us try to watch our health and our well-being.
Happy holidays.
Hey there, friends. Welcome to Kids on the Block, where fun and imagination come alive. We dive into magical world filled with exciting adventures and awesome friends.
What position were you in?
I was number 2.
What position were you?
Number 1.
He decided to cross the bridge, buy his house, and look for food on the other side.
We're going to do half cup of chocolate chips, and the other one, we're going to do half cup of the blueberries.
So, grab your imagination hats and get ready to explore with us. Join us every Saturday at 9 a.m. for new friends, amazing stories, and tons of laughter.
Join us as we explore the journeys of those who defy the odds and break barriers. We dive deep into the stories of triumph.
Sometimes when parenting a child with a special need or whatever disability, family life becomes a bit complicated and you may end up raising the child on your own.
Here, we inspire.
I have a farm which one we showcase with other dyslexic youths and autism, how to farm.
Motivate.
It's never easy, but what we do, the best thing is to work with another parent who has an elder child than yours.
And break through the barriers one story at a time. Push your boundaries beyond the limit. Saturdays at 8 p.m. The Grind, where business meets brilliance. It's not just about the ideas.
I was working as a shampoo boy. I used to wash clients' hair on the sink.
It's about making them happen. From big wins.
In primary school, when we would be asked what people want to be, I was categorical that I want to be a nurse.
To hard lessons.
The consoles change, the gaming equipment keep changing.
We cover it all. Tune in to The Grind, where every episode is packed with insights.
The person who is serving customers, always be a customer-centric.
Strategies.
When you pay attention to detail, you get luxury.
35 minutes past the hour. We thank you for staying with the Daily Report with me, George Maringa, and Rhoda Nyamai on Sign Language Interpretation. We thank you for your feedback. In fact, I noticed some on YouTube. Those of you watching on terrestrial platforms as well as YouTube, we thank you so much for your time and for joining us. Let me just perhaps read some of that feedback that I've seen, especially on the socials. You're saying, you didn't leave your name, but you're saying you're watching from Mombasa, as well as everyone else who's watching. We can see your feedback right here. Stephen Geoffrey, Nelson Kapoy saying you're watching. Alfred Jones watching from Nyandarua, no electricity. I hope Kenya Power restores that. Fred Omondi, you say, let these young lads be disciplined thoroughly to respect authority, however bad or good it is. And as well as Eve Shida, you're saying you're watching live. Thank you for watching. Please do stand by for that conversation we'll be having later on with Professor Peter Kagwanja and Professor Naitoli later on in the broadcast in just a short while. But before then, let's continue with the news. And he is both loved and despised in equal measure, yet remains resolute in his mission. Geoffrey Mosiria, the Chief Officer Environment for Nairobi City County, has recently garnered significant attention for his relentless commitment to cleaning the city. Tonight, our reporter Stanley Nyaringeta sits down with him to discuss the Herculean task of maintaining order in Nairobi. Take a look.
Ladies and gentlemen, karibu sana. This is TV47. I'm used to Stanley Nyaringita. This is County 047, Nairobi City County, and you're going to be engaging the gentleman who makes sure that this particular county is as spotless as clean and as it should be. He is a man who has received quite the backlash and quite the love in equal measure. We'll be trying to understand how he picks it for the 4 months he's been in this particular department of environment. Let's get into it, right? Samusiria.
Yes.
How are you, sir?
I'm good.
Salama?
Ya, niko salama.
Asante sana kwa kuungana nasi. Tuanze na wewe kutuambia wewe ni nani, yes. Ulianza hii kazi lini?
Kwa majina naitwa Geoffrey Mosiria. Mimi ndiye katibu mkuu wa mazingira gatuzi la Nairobi. Hii kazi nimeanza ya katibu baada ya election, baada ya kuchaguliwa kwa Gavana Sakajas, tulifanya interviews, tukafanikiwa, tukapata hii kazi. Na nilianzia katika sekta ya afya ambapo nilifanya pale kama katibu wa afya katika gatuzi la Nairobi. Kisha baada ya miaka 2 nikabadilishwa nikaletwa katika hii wizara mpya ya mazingira. Na hapo nimefanya miezi 4. Na ndiposa wengi wamekuja kunijua kwa sababu nimekuwa katika mtandao nikielimisha wananchi wa Nairobi na Wakenya kwa jumla kwamba lazima tukuze mazingira, lazima tutunze mazingira yetu, lazima tuhakikishe tunapoishi ni kusafi. Kama unatengeneza taka kutoka kwa nyumba yako, una generate waste, lazima uhakikishe ile taka inatoka kwa nyumba yako unaitunza vizuri na unaipeleka mahali ambapo inafaa. Na pia tunaangalia maneno ya noise pollution, ama ile kelele ambayo imezidi, ile ambayo kiwango imewekwa. Kwa ile mashine tunatumia inafaa kwa 35 decibels, 30 meters. So hizo vitu tunaangalia, na pia kuangalia mazingira kwa jumla, kama kuangalia miti, kupanda miti, kukuza hiyo miti, kuilea miti,
ukota taka
na mengineo ambao ni mazingira. Na pia wale wanachafua mazingira ni kazi yangu. Hata wale walikuwa wanakojoa town, ni mimi nahakikisha kwamba hatuwaruhusu mtu akojoa katikati ya town. Ukikojoa tunashukuru machaji kwa sababu aliwapeleka city moja wanaenda kufagia.
Lakini swali itakuwa kwa au wanaume ambao uliwapata ukikojoa pale, there was definitely a need to have a latrine hapo kando.
Tuko na
Nairobi County
tuko na vyoo vingi sana, tuko na choo town, tuko na choo kadhaa.
Lakini swali itakuwa
zinatosha. Na pia unapata wengi wao wanaokojoa kando ya barabara, wanaingia kwa kwa kamwanya hivi, wanaingia ndani wanakojoa. Ni watu ambao wanajiweza, na ni watu wametoka kwenye bar. Ametoka kwa bar, mtu amenunua bar, akanunua pombe kwa bar, ni mtu anaweza ingia kwa ile choo alipe shilingi 10 akajisaidia. Ama arudi kwa bar ajisaidie ndio ingie kwenye gari lake aweze kwenda nyumbani. Lakini watu wamekuwa na ile tunaita ni uzembe, ile tabia mbaya, uzoefu. Watu wanataka kujituma aende aseme wacha nifike kwa hiyo choo.
Mazoea,
ni mazoea, yani tabia mbaya.
Kwa hiyo miezi 4 umekuwa katika mtandao sana. Watu wanakuambia nini ukienda pale? Wanasema wana hit your DM, wanakuambia nini?
Wengi ni shukuru na uniita niane niwasaidie. Kwa sababu unapata kama sasa kuna wananchi walali, unapata mtu anafanya mjengo hadi usiku, kelele yote iko kwa nyumba yake, vibrations. Hiyo nyumba inatingishwa kutokana na ile tingatinga ambayo inachimba, ikichimbua mawe inafanya nyumba inatingika. Mtu kwa kitanda lakini hawezi lala usiku kwa sababu unasikia mashine ina vibrate hadi kwa kitanda. So wengine hiyo vumbi, wanafanya mjengo hizo kukoroga ile nyumba, kukorogea slab, wanafanya hadi usiku, vumbi yote imejaa kwa nyumba. Alafu hiyo cement, unajua cement is very hazardous, very poisonous, inaingia kwa nyumba. Watoto wameshikwa na asma, watu wakubwa wamefungana kifua, wengine wako na wazee kwa nyumba ambao hawahitaji hiyo vumbi. So there is a lot tunakumbana nao katika hii kazi. Na nyingine ni noise pollution. Mnaelewa maneno ya noise pollution?
Na umetuambia lazima ikuwe 35
decibels. Sasa unapata mtu amefungulia disco kwa estate, ama kanisa kwa estate, mahali ambapo watu wanaishi wanafaa kuishi kwa usalama. Mtu sasa kama sasa hivi upate pesa yako useme acha ninunue shamba Utawala ama ninunue Kilimani, Westlands, ujenge nyumba yako. Mtu anakuja yeye anajenga nyumba yake, anaibadilisha na kuwa bar kwa sababu anataka apate mapato. Alafu anavunja sheria kwa sababu leseni yao wamepewa ni kuanzia saa 4 asubuhi hadi saa ngapi? Saa 5 usiku. Sasa usiku hawana. Na tukiwashika wanakimbia kotini, wanachukua orders ya kuambia kwamba waruhusu waendelee na biashara tukiendelea na kesi. Sasa wananchi wenyewe ndio wameamua kuchafua mazingira na wanafanya vitu na ile kitu tunaita impunity. Wana operate with a lot of impunity. They don't mind about the neighbors. They're just disturbing the neighbors. Wakiulizwa kama ni kanisa, wanaambiwa mbona mnatupigia kelele? Wanawaambia nyinyi hampendi Mungu, nyinyi ndio pepo chafu. Wanawapasa na wanawakemea. Watu wameogopa. Yaani wanawafanyia blackmail. Kama ni wenye bar, wakiambiwa Wanamwambia tuko hustle, tumeemploy watu fulani wanapata pato. Watia hao majirani pia wanasahau kwamba wanafaa amka asubuhi waende kazini, wako na watoto wagonjwa, wako na wazazi wao ambao ni wazee wahitaji hiyo kelele. So imekuwa ni shida kubwa sana katika jiji letu la Nairobi, na tumekuwa tukitatua hizo shida, na ile tunaanika hadharani ni kuanika na tufichue uozo wao, kwa sababu leo tukimshika ataenda kotini, baada atatoka na orders. Tukimshika ataenda huko, ata find his way back to the market. So imefika mahali tunasema kwamba wacha nitumie mtandao wa kijamii waelimishe, na wao pia hata akiwa na kwa nyumba yake na watoto wake wanamuuliza, dadi tulikuona kwa TV ukipigia watu kelele ama kwa TikTok ulikuwa unafanya kitu chema kweli? Atajirudia aseme, ikiwa watoto wangu mahali wanaishi wapigiwe kelele, mbona nipigie wa jirani? So mtandao ni kwa kuelimishana na pia ku create awareness.
Ni kitu kipi kwa miezi 4 sasa, kitu kipi hautawahi sahau, unaona ni kama ni achievement kubwa kwako sana? Kitu kimoja,
noise pollution. Watu wako wanalala Nairobi hii, lakini leo hii watu wanashukuru sana, wanasema at least tunaweza kulala. Hiyo nayo we have tried our level best, kwa sababu hata kile kitu nitakumbukwa nacho katika hii wizara ya mazingira ni kwamba tulihakikisha tumemanage noise pollution, na hiyo ndio kitu inasumbua mtu. Unapata mtu umetoka kazini usiku umechoka, kelele ya baa ama ya kanisa huwezi lala, lakini sasa hivi at least wanalala na watu wanaishi kwa ile amani ambayo inafaa.
Watu husema Kigali, jiji pale Rwanda, ni safi mno, na watu wengi hujaribu kufananisha Nairobi na Kigali. Je, tutafika kama mahali Kigali ipo?
You see, Kigali ni kwa vile watu wamewajibika na wana ile mazoea ya kuwa responsible. Kenya kila mtu anataka afuate sheria yake, anasema wacha tuchafue, serikali itakuja kuchukua. Wacha tuchafue, tupatie kanjo ndio wafanye kazi sababu tunalipa ushuru. Wanasahau kwamba mazingira wameharibu wao wenyewe, inakuja kuwadhuru. Magonjwa zile tunatibu katika hospitali zetu zimetokana na mazingira chafu. So ni kwa sababu watu wana tabia mbaya na mazoea mbaya ambayo wanachafua mazingira wakidhani kwamba wanaumiza serikali, lakini wanasahau kwamba wao wenyewe ndio wanajiumiza. Wao wananchi wenyewe ndio wanafanya nini? Wanajiumiza, kwa sababu hiyo uchafu itawaletea magonjwa. Haitagonjesha serikali, si ni wao tu ndio wanagonjeka. So blame iko kwa nani? Wananchi sisi wenyewe ndio tunafaa tuwajibike. Tusiseme Kigali ni safi, wacha tutengeneze Kigali yetu hapa Kenya. Na pia Nairobi population yetu ina grow kila siku, na uchafu tunajenerate kila siku ni mingi sana. Lakini pia kuna watu wana tabia mbaya. Mtu anatoka na uchafu na gunia kwa nyumba yake anamwaga kando ya barabara.
Hiyo mpango wa drainage system Nairobi, kwa sababu utaingia jiji yenye hata tukiangalia nyuma yetu jiji ni safi. Ukiangalia pale Central Business District, lakini ukianza kuingia kwenye mitaa kule ndani,
shida ni kwamba
kwanza kukinyesha,
shida ni kwamba sisi wenyewe ndio tumefunga hiyo drainage system. Wale tunaishi hapo tunatoa takataka, baada tuiweke taka vizuri, utafute ile kampuni ambayo imeregister inachukua uchafu pale Dandora, ama utafute njia ya kufikisha mahali tumetenga katika kila sub county. Wewe unaamua unamwaga kando ya barabara, unamwaga kwa drainage system mahali ati ndio onekana, wanamwaganga usiku, halafu inafunga drainage system. Unapata tuna spend 90% of our time ku clean drainage system, kwa kota taka kando ya barabara. Wakati tunafika kwa zile transfer points zetu, mahali tumetenga taka imwagwe ndio tuokote mara moja tupeleke Dandora katika mitaa, unapata imejaa zaidi. Wakati tunaanza kuiokota tena wamerudisha kwa barabara. Yaani imekuwa ni mchezo wa paka na panya huko kule. Na tukiwashika wao wenyewe ndio wanaingia kwenye mitandao wanasema serikali inatuonea, serikali inatuumiza. Serikali iweze kuumiza kama we mwenyewe utafuata sheria.
Je, tunahitaji dumping site hapa Nairobi?
Tuko na only one dumping site ambao ni Dandora, ndiko gazetted. Hizi zingine zote ni illegal.
Okay.
Hazina kibali, haziko gazetted. Ni ile tu yani ni place to make a transfer point. Okay. Nafaa watu wote walete uchafu hapo pamoja, tuibebe kwa gari zetu tupeleke Dandora. Lakini wamekuwa wakitupatia kazi ngumu zaidi, kwa sababu hawafuati sheria, wanamwaga kando ya barabara. Wengine wanapatia wale vijana wa mitaa wale chokora. Wakishachukua the street families hiyo uchafu, wanaenda wanamwaga kando ya barabara, wengine wanatupa kwenye drainage system, wengine wanaingisha kwa sewage system wanafunga nayo. Ndio maana unaona tuko na shida yote ya mafuriko kutokana na uchafu ambayo tumetupa na kumwaga kila mahali.
Na hiyo uchafu kuna kwa Kiingereza utasema kuna ile solid waste, kuna ile inafaa kuwa recyclable. Kuna mpango upi wa kuhakikisha kuwa ule anayechukua uchafu wangu kwa nyumba imesawanywa na
waste segregation inafaa ianzie kwa source kwako kwa nyumba. Unafaa uwe na makaratasi 3. Ukuwe na ile unaweka ya recyclable, ile unaweka ya organic, na ingine ile ambayo ni hazardous, kama zile diaper umetoa watoto, ile kinyesi, kama umejidunga mashindano zile kwa nyumba, hizo zote unaweka hiyo hazardous hapo.
Tofauti itakuwa ipi?
Kuna ni colors. Kuna ya red, yellow, black. Lakini kuna zile colors sasa ambazo tunaenda kupata za NEMA ambazo zitakuwa zina guide on that. Na pia tuko na mpango wa kuinstall dustbins in CBD. Tukiziweka tutakuwa na hiyo mpangilio ambayo itawaelekeza vile tutakuwa tunaweka hizo taka zetu.
Na kwa sababu tumeanza kuongelelea mipango, mpango wa 2025, what are the plans for that Nairobi City County has?
Kwanza nashukuru gavana kwa sababu alipatia budget tukanunua zile gari, zile trucks, zile RC, refuse compactors, ambazo zitakuwa inatusaidia kutoa uchafu kutoka kwa source na kupeleka pale Dandora. Kwa hivyo itatusaidia kupunguza uchafuzi wa jiji. So mpango wa kwanza ni kusafisha jiji. Jiji liwe safi, kila mtu aweze kujivunia. La pili ni kuhakikisha kwamba watu wanafuata zile sheria zimewekwa za mazingira. Na pia tunaenda kusafisha mto Nairobi tukishirikiana na Mheshimiwa Rais, kwa sababu alisema in the next 2 years we shall be swimming in and fishing in Nairobi River. Is a dream that is going to come through, because tukishirikiana na wananchi waache kutupa taka, na tunaposafisha tukiendelea kusonga, it is achievable. Only that we have to tubadilishe akili zetu, yani mind zetu, tutoe ile tabia mbaya, ile mafikira mbaya kwamba wacha tuchafue serikali kuje kusafisha.
Unaweza tueleza Mosiria ni nani, away from akivalia jacket yenye watu wamenjua sana?
Mosiria
ametoka wapi?
Mosiria ni mtoto wa mzee Charles Mosiria Matoke. Ndiye kitenda mimba, last born. Familia ya watoto 21, na mimi ndiye nilifunga kwa kuzaliwa. Na babangu alikuwa na wake 3, mamangu akiwa mmoja wao. Kwa hivyo kama angeoa mamangu singezaliwa.
Ungekuwa hapo leo.
Leo hii singekuepo. Kwa hivyo ndio maana nasema polygamous ni kitu kizuri kilichokifanya mimi nizaliwe duniani. Na pia Mosiria amesoma akahitimu, akafika katika chuo kikuu cha Nairobi, the University of Nairobi. Nikasomea somo la Bachelor of Commerce Finance Option, na pia nimefanya Masters MBA, na nimehitimu, nimegraduate. Na sasa hivi ni katibu mkuu wa mazingira, na hapo awali kabla niwe katibu niliweza kuwa administrator wa hospitali. Nilifanya Mama Lucy Mbagathi na Pumwani. Na pia Mosiria ni yule mtu ambaye anapenda kuishi vizuri na watu, kuhakikisha kwamba hakuna yule anadhulumiwa haki zake. Ndiposa mwaniona nikitembea usiku na mchana kuhakikisha kwamba mazingira iko safi, hakuna yule anadhulumu mwenzake kwa kumpigia kelele.
Pia kusaidia watu.
Na pia kusaidia watu, ukipata kama unazalisha tumbo lako na la familia yako na ubakishe tumbo 2-3, lisha hizo tumbo, kwa sababu huwezi jua baraka zako zitatoka wapi.
Kitu kingine pia imekera watu wengi na hapa Nairobi is street food. Unaweza tuelezea, and particularly even for 2025, your plans, because at the end of the day Nairobians love street food, but how should it be, and hata wenye wanauza, how should it be?
What happens is this: the street food is sweet, it's good, but how is it prepared and how is it stored? I have in the recent past discovered how most of these food vendors are operating in the city, and they prepare their food in places which are very dirty, like ile expose ya smocha na kebabs. They were being prepared where the place was dirty. Kuna mapanya hapo ndani, kuna mende, mafuta yenyewe ni ile ya kurecycle chafu. The place was so dirty. And this person is the one who supplies all the food vendors in town. There's trolleys, there's moja in town. Yeah. And after that day, he ran away. He transferred his business to another place. Okay. He pretended to be repairing the place, then he disappeared. Because he knew he would lose the customers, because they have discovered the kind of food he was selling the people. Now the storage of those trolleys. After wamemaliza kuuza, they store them in the toilet. And if you go to those toilets, they are dirty. Unajua choo jioni yoshwangi wakishamaliza jioni wanakuja kuosha asubuhi ndio wafungue. Mende zote ziko hapo ndani, kinyesi, ile harufu yote. Mapanya, alafu hiyo harufu yote inaingia kwa zile smokies leftover na mayai na nini zinakaa hapo ndani. Kesho anakuja na warm, anawasha ile moto hiyo trolley na warm na unakula. Alafu unasema moja ya tao ina slap.
Geoffrey Mosiri, asante sana kwa kuzungumza nasi. Kwa kila mtu ambaye amekuwa kitutazama hapa tukiwa na Geoffrey Mosiri, asanteni sana. My name is Stanley Nyerungita. Goodbye.
This December, learn about safety precautions to take into consideration this season.
If you can remember, if you drive on a motorcycle often, to make sure that you have a helmet, it's key to decreasing the severity of the accidents.
If you are passing in a bus from Kakamega to Mombasa, in between, just stand up, stretch your legs, and even when you are seated, keep pumping your feet, keep moving your feet to avoid that long stasis of blood in the veins.
Healthier options for you to maintain a balanced lifestyle amid the holiday hustle.
Eating healthy really doesn't mean that you have to deprive yourself, but we really just have to factor on how to strike a balance. Portion control and moderation are very key. Let us enjoy the season, and at the same time, let us try to watch our health and our well-being.
Happy holidays.
Hey there, friends. Welcome to Kids on the Block, where fun and imagination come alive. We dive into magical world filled with exciting adventures and awesome friends.
What position were you in?
I was number 2.
What position were you?
Number 1.
He decided to cross the bridge by his house and look for food on the other side. We're going to do half cup of chocolate chips, and the other one, we're going to do half cup of the blueberries.
So, grab your imagination hats and get ready to explore with us. Join us every Saturday at 9 a.m. for new friends, amazing stories, and tons of laughter.
Join us as we explore the journeys of those who defy the odds and break barriers. We dive deep into the stories of triumph.
Sometimes when parenting a child with a special need or whatever disability, family life becomes a bit complicated, and you may end up raising the child on your own.
Here, we inspire.
I have a farm which one we showcase with other dyslexic youths and autism, how to farm.
Motivate.
It's never easy, but what we do, the best thing is to work with another parent who has an elder child than yours.
And break through the barriers one story at a time. Push your boundaries beyond the limit. Saturdays at 8 p.m. The Grind, where business meets brilliance. It's not just about the ideas.
I was working as a shampoo boy. I used to wash clients' hair on the sink.
It's about making them happen. From big wins.
In primary school, when we would be asked what people want to be, I was categorical that I want to be a nurse.
To hard lessons.
The consoles change, the gaming equipment keep changing.
We cover it all. Tune in to The Grind, where every episode is packed with insights.
The person who is serving customers, always be a customer-centric.
Strategies.
When you pay attention to detail, you get luxury items.
And stories to fuel your ambition. Don't just dream it, grind it. Mondays at 7:30 p.m.
Jiunge nasi tunapoangazia safari za viongozi bora. Kutoka kwa ushindi mkubwa hadi masomo magumu.
Wakati wetu kwamba wasichana si wa kusoma, ni wa kuolewa, ng'ombe ipatikane, wazazi wakuwa watajiri.
Tunashughulikia yote.
I wish I were a better investor.
My parents taught me how to look for things for myself.
Tazama Mfahamu Kiongozi, ambapo kila kipindi kimejaa maarifa, mikakati na hadithi za kukuza azma yako.
For me to succeed, I have to fight.
Kila Alhamisi saa 1:30.
Sign language interpretation. Please do stay with us. We will be back shortly.
This December, learn about safety precautions to take into consideration this season.
If you can remember, if you drive on a motorcycle often, to make sure that you have a helmet, it's key to decreasing the severity of the accidents.
If you are passing in a bus from Kakamega to Mombasa, in between, just stand up, stretch your legs, and even when you are seated, keep pumping your feet, keep moving your feet to avoid that long stasis of blood in the veins.
Healthier options for you to maintain a balanced lifestyle amid the holiday hustle.
Eating healthy really doesn't mean that you have to deprive yourself, but we really just have to factor on how to strike a balance. Portion control and moderation are very key. Let us enjoy the season, and at the same time, let us try to watch our health and our well-being.
Happy holidays.
Hey there, friends. Welcome to Kids on the Block, where fun and imagination come alive. We dive into magical world filled with exciting adventures and awesome friends.
What position were you in?
I was number 2.
What position were you?
Number 1.
He decided to cross the bridge by his house and look for food on the other side.
We're going to do half cup of chocolate chips, and the other one, we're going to do half cup of the blueberries.
So, grab your imagination hats and get ready to explore with us. Join us every Saturday at 9 a.m. for new friends, amazing stories, and tons of laughter.
Join us as we explore the journeys of those who defy the odds and break barriers. We dive deep into the stories of triumph.
Sometimes when parenting a child with a special need or whatever disability, family life becomes a bit complicated, and you may end up raising the child on your own.
Here, we inspire,
I have a farm which one we showcase with other dyslexic youths and autism, how to farm.
motivate,
It's never easy, but what we do, the best thing is to work with another parent who has an elder child than yours.
and break through the barriers one story at a time. Push your boundaries beyond the limit. Saturdays at 8 p.m. The Grind, where business meets brilliance. It's not just about the ideas.
I was working as a shampoo boy. I used to wash clients' hair on the sink.
It's about making them happen. From big wins
In primary school, when we would be asked what people want to be, I was categorical that I want to be a nurse.
to hard lessons,
The consoles change, the gaming equipment keep changing.
we cover it all. Tune in to The Grind, where every episode is packed with insights,
The person who is serving customers, always be a customer-centric.
strategies,
When you pay attention to detail, you get luxury items.
and stories to fuel your ambition. Don't just dream it, grind it. Mondays at 7:30 p.m.
Jiunge nasi tunapoangazia safari za viongozi bora. Kutoka kwa ushindi mkubwa hadi masomo magumu.
Wakati wetu
Indeed, thank you so much for staying with us. You're watching the Daily Report. I am George Maringa. On sign language is Catherine Simaloy. Allow me to just appreciate your feedback right here on YouTube once again. Vincent Aruya, you were saying you're watching live from Kisii. Lawrence Mwangi watching live from Washington State. Thank you so much, Lawrence. Dalton Kiri watching from Kericho, Litein. Thank you for that as well. Time now for the conversation on power and politics. And tonight we look at the 2025 political entry with my guests, the two gentlemen I promised you earlier. They're already here. I begin with my immediate right, Professor Gitile Naituli, political analyst. Thank you, Prof. Good evening.
Good evening to you.
And Professor Peter Kagwanja, political policy advisor and political analyst as well. Good evening, Prof.
Good evening. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you too. And I'll perhaps begin by quickly, finding out where you spent your festivities and how your year has begun. Professor Kagwanja.
I spent much of the Christmas holiday and the New Year in the village.
Okay.
I wanted to find out the real, Bethlehem means going back to your roots.
Yes.
So I went to the village, spent 2 weeks. It was very telling in terms of the difference between the city and the village. We have been going out, for outside trips in Tanzania, where now focused at home, you find, the chapati is still as important as it was. You thought it had lost its reputation. It is still very central. The buzi, the goat is still very key. So the very things that have made us Kenyans, things that makes the Tusker possibly different these days. In the Murima, there is Moratina and all that kind of. It's enjoyable.
Good you bring up the Murima. We'll find out kama bado imeguswa. Professor Naituli, how was your festive season and perhaps how was the year began?
Me, I went all over Kenya. Went to Amboseli. And got there 30 years ago.
Oh, okay.
And there was elephants all over the place. But this time when I went, there was no elephants.
Okay.
What they told me is elephants are very clever. When it rains like now, they walk out. They hit the grass, which has competition. After that, they come back when no one else can compete with them in the park. So they said it was a wrong timing to go there. They're very clever. But I also went home.
Okay.
I went to Nakuru, then I went to Meru. So...
And
there was a nice vacation.
Nice vacation. I began by asking you that, gentlemen, and back to you, Prof. Kagwanja, because I want to get the feeling, perhaps you get even on the ground, whereas, of course, there was a festive season. There was a meme somewhere where if you just want to, a conversation on politics to begin. Useme tu, hii siasa tu vile inaenda. And then it continues for 2 hours as people are cooking and enjoying. And from what you're feeling, Prof, the 2025 political entry, a lot happened in 2024. And this year seems to have begun on not a very, rather unusual way, rather unconventional way. When you look at even the issues about abductions, the president facing more the western side, we did see where he spent his festivities as well. What are you making about how the year has begun now politically?
Well, I don't think this is new. That's where at some stage I said, even if you push me out of Kenya, I will not go away. Because there's nowhere else you can get this kind of free entertainment. You know, the swing, you know, country really swings like a roller coaster from one extreme to the other extreme. So I don't need to take you through the whole episodes of the Kenya Kwanza government. From the time it was elected to office, Raila Odinga, you know, on the other extreme, now swinging to this other extreme. Gachagua versus Uhuru Kenyatta, or the extra extreme, on this other side they are changing. So we have come to a point where we are now reaping the whirlwind of what we saw in 2024, which is the impeachment. The consequences of the sowing of the whirlwind, of impeachment is that Mount Kenya is lost for Kenya Kwanza. I'm sure we don't have to state it matter of factly. We can say they may have a chance, but the truth of the matter is that the politics there is so radicalized, the grievance politics is so deep that within the next 3 years you can see the reverse of what happened in 2022. Uhuru Kenyatta thought that in 2022, when he get out of State House and do a round of Mount Kenya, things will turn his way. He was shocked that his people had gone so far away that he could not even see where they are. So that's the situation that William Ruto will find himself in 2027. Now, William Ruto plays the long game, not the short game. And he thinks that Nyanza would be a good way to look at things, which is a prudent way to look at it, because Nyanza brings you, a kind of quote-unquote captive vote that goes in one way direction. So it's a captive vote. And therefore it is good to cash on that as a captive vote. But when you look at the nature of resistance, what is now happening, it is multi-ethnic. So there's a difference between, Ruto himself also is getting a payback for his own politics. He's the one who almost destroyed ethnic politics through his Hasra movement and introduced the class-based politics. Now, what is happening is that he's trying to now go to ethnic balkanization, where the ethnic warlords or fiefs bring their stock for trading in this political market. But now the political market is no longer ethnic. And that's why that's the context in which you want to place the Gen Z, the abductions and the Gen Z versus government kind of responses. So when you look at it that way, then you begin to see that the formations that are forming now are not firm. Because the moment you bring in Raila Odinga, then you have to tell me what you're going to do with Wetangula. The moment you bring in, Raila Odinga, you have to tell me what you're going to do with Musalia Mudavadi, given that they came first. And now he's we call them come lately. And he comes lately and want to steal the show. Then how do you think Mudavadi and Wetangula are feeling about this? And then Raila comes with his own people who are also challengers of the same, and therefore it might look like it's calm in the West, but this is what I would call, the lull before the storm, and as such. I think I've said this before and I want to repeat it. Kenya has a rendezvous with the Destiny in February. That's next month. If Raila Odinga wins the seat, and I have my doubts, then Ruto's path might be smoother. The game might be in his favor. If Raila loses, then the game will change.
The game will change.
And it is going to change against William Ruto. And of course, the Kenya Kwanza. That is how Kenya changes. Yes, it is. It's so quick. It's like this. And I think that's what makes us happy. That's why sometimes we look healthy, despite the hardship of the economy, because we are laughing all the time.
Of course. Professor.
Except when it comes to abduction. I'm sure we're going to have that topic.
Yes.
That's a very serious matter.
Yeah, Professor Naituli, we've seen what even the political class has been doing. In fact, on one day, the former deputy president was on one side, and literally on the east, and the other part of UDA was on the west, and they were throwing jabs at each other. What do you make of this? And Professor talks about the Balkanization, the different wave of Balkanization, multi-ethnic is what he calls it. What do you make of that? And the conversations around, he was there, he now seems to be telling us that he went and he saw, and now he seems to be saying, let's go this direction.
First, let me tell you that they can try to Balkanize, and that will not work.
Okay.
And the reason why it will not work is, I think Professor Kawanja mentioned it, President Ruto was extremely effective in tearing down the walls of tribalism when he brought the people together in the Hazola movement. Now, this is what has just happened. This country is now one market. One market. What that means is that the price of a banana in Kericho is the same, the price of banana in Nairobi is the same in Meru. Meaning that a band policy on bananas will affect Kenya as a whole, not one region. So people have come to understand that. So the tribe is not selling, and they will not sell because we're in a singular market. But what Kenyans need to be worried about, though, is that the politicians could very easily bring a war here. They could very easily bring down this house. And the reason is the way the country was started. The idea of Kenyatta for giving the home guns and the people committed the crimes during the colonial occupation, because that's what it was. That was a very, very wrong way of starting a country. They needed then to do like the South African didn't have a truth and reconciliation. So that was not done. Then we moved, the next liberation was Kibaki. Then Kibaki does nothing about the impunity, about the crimes committed by Arab Moi. That impunity was also left, basically no punishment, no punishment to visit. So when Kenyatta came, Kenyatta 2, that is Uhuru Kenyatta, it was easy for him to continue corruption. It was easy for him to continue all the other things he did, because he knows there will be no consequences, because there has never been consequences. And of course, now we are continuing. You understand? Now that's the risk. The next thing government will have to put an end to impunity for this country to move in the right direction. But all we have done so far, and this is the problem we're having. So when you look at Kenya, you see the government has a mind. It has a mind just like you and I. It has a conscience. So what has happened since independent also is that we really never formed a Kenyan government. We are under an extractive regime. The colonial extractive regime was bequeathed to Jomo Kenyatta, who continued extraction. There's a difference between extraction and building. You build because it's yours. You own it. So you want it better. You extract because you are going somewhere else. It's not yours. So Kenyatta continues the extraction. Moi continues it for 24 years. Kibaki comes and puts a break to that. He looks at the country, Kibaki looks at the country as a Kenyan president, and therefore puts economic structures, he put things that actually worked. because he focused on building it. Kenyatta moves out, Uhuru comes in and continues extraction. Okay, he continued extraction as if he is also moving out of Kenya the way the Muzungu moved out of Kenya. And what we are doing now is the same extraction. This is why if you talk to people in the street, they will tell you nothing is working, because extractive policies cannot grow an economy. You understand? Because to grow an economy, you need to build the faith in the people that they own the country. That is to you. So from independence up to today, we have built only one type of leadership, a hunter leader. You know, you can compare a hunter and a farmer if you want. A farmer is a nurture. A farmer nurtures. A hunter takes. Does not add any value. You see, you give a farmer 1 kilo of maize, he'll give you 90 kilograms of maize. As the patient, we will nurture what they find. But a hunter will kill and divide the animal. Okay? So the hunter mentality has Kenyans looking at the country as an animal, which need to be brought down, then shared. This is why we want to sell everything, because you can't share this house, you must sell it. You must convert it to a carcass and then sell part by part. So this has been the foundational weakness of Kenya as a republic. It will require, and this is why we are being shaken by the new generation, because you see, they are shaking us. They're asking for good governance. They're asking for integrity management of public affairs. They're asking for accountability and transparency in management. That is shaking the foundation, because if you follow that, then you deliver a stable, progressive society. So it will have to go back. This, what we are doing now, is not sustainable.
Professor Kagwanja, and this young generation, number one, has been accused of, being mannerless. They lack manners. Seems that nowadays freedom of expression is lacking manners. And these young people, I mean, you've interacted with them. They speak their mind, really. Is it one that this government does not recognize the ability and the grit and who these young people are, so much so that they're actually now, we're no longer having, whereas back in the day it was the older generation, perhaps your colleagues and older ones, getting arrested for, criticizing the government, whichever methods they use, they are getting abducted. I mean, what is this, Prof?
I think first and foremost, we need to, again, take the baton from where he left in terms of conceptualizing Kenya. In one of our seminars at the University of Nairobi, we talked about ethnic aristocracies. And we traced these ethnic aristocracies from the British aristocracy in the Happy Valley.
Yes.
That Naivasha, Nakuru, that Happy Valley. In the 1930s, it was the place to be by Europeans who wanted joy and all the happiness and all the funness, the fun. And when they went there, a culture grew up where, it had three aspects. One is if you want to be wealthy. That's the way it will be recognized, wealth. So you worship wealth. Two, you worship land, large tracts of land. You want every week to acquire 100,000 or 1,000 acres of land, just for nothing. Just to be able to show off to your colleagues that you have, I have a new house, I have a new land, I have new this. That's the culture. Then the Happy Valley was also about orgies of everything, from murders to, what have you. Orgies. To orgies of, what happens, between us. Now, that happiness, that made the Happy Valley, made it also a moral decadence of our society. Now, for many of us, we assume that the inheritance we got from colonialism was just authoritarianism. And therefore, we all try, the historians and political scientists will try to tell you that we are suffering from colonial legacy. And Mahmoud Mamdani, the Ugandan, will tell you that the legacy of late colonialism is ethnicity, the legacy of late colonialism is tyranny, and all that kind of thing. It might be true, but the real legacy is these what you call the aristocracies of the mind.
Yeah.
That you imagine yourself as an aristocrat looking for more land, looking for more, friends and happiness and wealth, forgetting that you have a responsibility to build a country. And this has caught up with our leadership, that you are elected today, but you forget that the manifesto that you bequeath the people was meant to serve the three, to defeat the three enemies of our people, poverty, ignorance, and disease. You stabilize education, you destabilize health, and you eliminate poverty. That's how you help your people. Now, we are in this orgy of competition that you think about institution in terms of what it can deliver to you, not what it can deliver to the people. So you want to look at, health sector. How are you going to make money? Introduce technology, bring the Spanish, bring the Indians, bring the Europeans to invest in their technology, and you get your cut. And by the next election, you have already made your war chest to defeat your enemies. Then you come to education, you think about how the transformation from the old system to the new system, the amount of money that will be justified to do that. So you change the education system even when there's no reason, or even when you don't have justified. At the wee hour of the morning, when people complain, you set up commissions to justify why you are changing the education. Remember, already the policy of changing is accepted, is already in the place, and things are rolling. Then you want to set up a commission which spends more money to find out why you should depend in that commission. Now, all this is justified by the fact that you want to use institutions to get rich, you want to make money, and what they call the rentier state. And that rentier state is what is killing the country. It's not that Kenya is poor. It is not that Kenya rains have stopped. We've always had rains and dry seasons. Now, what is new is the magnitude of this, of this, if you wish, hunger for money, hunger to exploit institutions to make wealth. Institutions are supposed to be stabilized. They're not supposed to be money makers. And those that don't make money for you, you kill them. So somebody told me, and I thought this was a laughing matter, that it's not, that we are no longer looking for milk. We are going with the swords and cutting the cow to get milk, and then we don't care what happens to it after we have cut the unders.
We'll go with.
So that kind of mentality is what the Gen Zs are fighting against. Not because of anything, because the Gen Zs grew, all the late millennials and the Gen Zs grew up during the Kibaki period, when poverty was almost becoming something of the past.
It was almost becoming history.
It was almost becoming history. Because if you don't have money, you have a job by those who can employ you. So there was money in the pocket. That's what people are talking about. And these Gen Z saw their fathers wealthy. And they made requests, and requests were answered by their fathers because their fathers and mothers could give them what they wanted. Today, fathers have sharpened the skill of explaining to the youngsters why they are poor and why they cannot afford, what they used to afford a couple of years ago, just 5 years ago. Now, that is what is now building into the grievance of the Gen Z. Response to the Gen Z, you go straight to Argentina in the era of military dictatorship, where abductions, kidnapping, and all these disappearances, as they are called, begin to become a fact of politics. And therefore, it now becomes a reason. We've not gone to the extent of the Argentina. I hope we don't. Where you sometimes even abduct expectant women because you think that they are going to bring forth a Gen Z who will be right. So, and you want to give this, if it's a millennial who is expecting a baby and you think that she is irreconcilable, then you want to take her, because this is what we were doing in Argentina during the military dictatorship, what they call the dirty war.
The dirty war.
The dirty war in Argentina was that nonsensical, that you think that it's so radical that even the child that's going to be born is going to be so radical. They need to be given to a military leadership, a military family.
I just want them to arrow my friend.
Break. Just a minute then?
Yeah.
I can give you a minute.
Oh, okay. I just want them to assist them dog why Kenya will never be Argentina. Is because these people have a history of self-liberation.
Oh, okay.
They have a history, when you put them into trouble, they know only themselves can bring them out of trouble. So the end result of what is happening, abduction and so on, is to radicalize and eventually make these people take arms. That is why we need to think carefully. When you start something which is outside the law, you need to carefully consider the repercussions. Because you see, physics says wherever there is an action, there is an opposite and equal reaction. So, yes, now you can take a break, but we'll continue.
Yes, absolutely. On that, let's take a commercial break. Of course, a lot to unpack. We've just started on matters of abductions. We'll be speaking to the gentleman more on, the angle that they've brought about on what reaction then this brings. And we've seen that reaction. There was that demonstration notice, and we'll be looking at what this portends, especially in the year 2025. If you're watching the Daily Report, the topic tonight being the 2025 political entry. Please keep your feedback coming. We'll be back shortly.
This December, learn about safety precautions to take into consideration this season.
If you can remember, if you drive on a motorcycle often, to make sure that you have a helmet, it's key to decreasing the severity of the accidents.
If you are passing in a bus from Kakamega to Mombasa, in between, just stand up, stretch your legs, and even when you are seated, keep pumping your feet, keep moving your feet to avoid that long stasis of blood in the veins.
Healthier options for you to maintain a balanced lifestyle amid the holiday hustle.
Eating healthy really doesn't mean that you have to deprive yourself, but we really just have to factor on how to strike a balance. Portion control and moderation are very key. Let us enjoy the season, and at the same time, let us try to watch our health and our well-being.
Happy holidays.
Hey there, friends. Welcome to Kids on the Block, where fun and imagination come alive.
Welcome back. You're watching the Daily Report. My guests, Professor Peter Kagwanja and Professor Gitile Naituli, are still here. Prof. Naituli, picking up from what Professor Kagwanja is talking about these abductions. On one hand, government says it doesn't know who is abducting. In fact, they are now alleged abductions. Political factions are, accusing each other. Former Deputy President has actually been accused of conducting these abductions. People are being accused of. One side is saying, we've seen the leader of majority saying some have been locking up themselves. This whole abduction conundrum, what exactly are we seeing? What do we need to see beyond or deeper into these still waters?
First of all, in the law, the government is banned, it's not allowed by law to say that it doesn't know who is abducting. The Inspector General of Police cannot say that because it is his duty to know. So you see, there is what we call duty of care.
Yeah.
The government has duty of care. for our lives and our property. In fact, that's why it exists. There's no other reason for government existing. So what is striking, though, is the lack of humanity in us. It's like we have become soulless. You see, the country is becoming more narcissistic. You see, narcissism is an incurable disease because the narcissists love to see narcissism and sadism go together. They like to see people suffering, like to see the suffering. Then they lack empathy. They are completely unfeeling. And if you listen to what was happening in Western Kenya, then you are shocked. Is this a country of people or a country of human animals? Because if you can't feel for the other Kenyan, if you can't feel for that crying Embu family, then you are not alive. You understand? You are not normal. Now, this is narcissism at its best, though. People need to understand that before I guess we elect people, we need to know whether they are a good mother. You know, somebody said we need to check whether the parents. Now, it need to go the other way around because the children in psychology, they develop what is called attachment to a primary caregiver between the first and the 18th month. If you didn't have that, when you grow, become an adult, you think the whole world is against you. So what happens when you are a big person in policy making? Everyone else is wrong except you. So you are the only one who is right, everybody else is wrong. Now, this is what is happening to us because this is something that should not be happening. You know, it's much easier to do the right thing. It's much easier to offer good governance. It's much easier to offer integrity in the management of public affairs than to abduct. It's more complicated. But also, now that you ask that question, who has the power to track people down and draft? Let me ask you, who has the power? The power to track you, we have given it to 3 agencies. We have given it to the National Intelligence Service. Okay? They have the power to know where you are any given time. They can know that I'm in this station. Now, we are also giving it to the CID, the arm that does crime research. Okay? We have given that power also to the military intelligence. If these people don't know who is doing this thing, then they are telling us we don't have a country. Do you understand? So they can't get away from this. And I think, given the fact that they are already releasing them because things became a little hot, it can tell you that who is doing it. Now, the other fellow you are talking about, the Gachagua, that one, he just talks too much, if you ask me. He has no power to abduct anything. Where would he get the power from? First of all, the Kenyan state is one of the most strongest states in Africa. This is not a country you can play around with and do criminal things. They will catch you the same day you do it, trust me. We have the most effective police force on earth. There is nothing can be done here which they don't want, and they don't get owner of it in the same day. That's how they have been able to protect us from the terrorists. Otherwise, you know, so I think this argument need to cease. They need to grow up, in my opinion, listening to a complaint. A complaint is a complaint. You see, when these children do satire, because that's what really I see, it is satire there. And if you have been looking in the social media, since the abduction, it has increased. It has now.
There was a new one today.
The new one, undressing the president, doing all that kind of stuff. Because what happened is that they are provoked. Okay, they are not scared. They are being provoked. So it's much easier to do the right thing. But there's something Nakawanja saying which I would like to emphasize.
Yes.
We have converted the civil service to opportunity for richness. Public service is supposed to be a sacrifice that you do to the fellow citizen, that you do to your motherland. But for us in this country, it's an opportunity to get rich. It's not an opportunity to serve. Now, how do we do it? We don't care. You see, they say that if it's not broken, don't fix. But if you don't fix, because the only way you steal on government public money is through projects. So you have to create project even where you are not supposed to create Any. And this is where you see we have changed education how many times now? Four times. We inherited this thing from Britain. They have never changed theirs, the one we inherited from them. Tanzania inherited the same system from England. They have never changed, neither has Uganda. But ourselves, we have changed 4 times because every time officials come in the ministry, they sit down and they say, okay, how do we make money here? We must have a new project. Okay? Then they proceed to implement. Let me ask you, we are talking about building classes. Now, where are we building them? There was Form 1 classes in secondary schools. What is wrong with taking the 9th, is it going in grade 9, to those Form 1 classes? Why do we need new classes? If you take them to secondary schools where their class already exists, you lose your 10% or 20%, which you could have got if you built a new class. Extractive policy making. A policy whose primary objective is to extract. Okay? That is our weakness. We changed the police uniform. What was wrong with the police uniform? Remember, we changed them, right? What was wrong with those uniforms?
Professor Kagwanja, the president in his New Year message address, even he says, and I quote, "There are clear signs that our moral fabric is at risk of decay, exacerbated by various factors, including the manipulation of digital technology, particularly social media, to amplify antisocial behavior and erode moral values." These moral values are issues that the president is supposed to even address in his State of the Nation address. And when you look at this government and the leaders in it, there are even those who have argued they have no moral authority to call out immoral values per se. Where is this line fine line between calling each other out and at the same time speaking in a manner that we saw yesterday? We saw Oscar Sudi saying if he was Interior CS, would have handled this in 3 days. We've had what they have said about the term limits. I mean, what do you make about all this, even as you chime in about abductions?
Let's be clear. The internet has come. There's this Chinese leader, Deng Xiaoping, who once said, when they were opening up China to the world, in other words, the market economy, he was very famous for his quips and humor. And he said, when you open the window, you get fresh air and your share of mosquitoes. You see, so it is natural. And as a result, then, we have opened ourselves to the internet. So we'll get fresh air, but at the same time, we are going to get, there's some moral issues, which you get online. So it's for the parents, as it were, to watch that. It is for the guardians, the church, the elders, the opinion readers, the clergy, whoever they are. Everybody has responsibility for that. But there's a difference between a dog and a hot dog. Yes, one is a quick snack, that's your hot dog. The other one is a very dangerous canine. It will eat you up. So you must look at the level at which you are discussing. So when you talk about morality in this particular matter, you're missing the point. The real thing in Kenya is that somebody somewhere has hatched a strategy of containing the Gen Z movement, because it's the greatest threat to the presidency and to the stability of our government since the time I can remember, except possibly for Mogiki, which was somehow localized to the Mount Kenya region.
Yes, this one.
The Gen Z was national. You saw the crowds in Kisumu, you saw the crowds in Nakuru, you saw the crowds in Eldoret, in Turkana, and elsewhere. So as a result, that was a very real threat. But what a way to contain them, because the reason why we had the disappearances and abductions and killings in Argentina in 1976, it was 76 to around 83, 5 years. It was the regime trying to contain what they were calling communists or rebellion. Now here, this is not a rebellion, it's a reform process. And you can't stop it because it has a reason for it. Now, you talk about morality, and that's what we addressed at the beginning of this, that Kenya has reached a level where we have to go back to the drawing board and find whether we are building a nation or destroying a nation. We have to be clear in our minds. That's good. Because I don't think we are building a nation. And if somebody argue against that, then you can tell me. Take, for example, we knew for sure that if we went the way of impeachment rather than peacemaking, somebody or a group are going to radicalize the Mount Kenya region, right? So you radicalize Mount Kenya region through the politics of victimhood and grievance, not about issues, not about agenda, any agenda that is going to deliver to the people of Mount Kenya, except unity. And I've told you before this, Maringa, the best unity you get is that of robbers arranging to rob a bank, because everything is at stake. If they mess up or they betray each other, they are going to die. So they have the best unity. Unity is not a value. You explain the unity for what? In this case, we need unity for the stability of our country, not for its own sake. Now, we need all these matters, all these issues coming together. What the young people are asking for is justice. You have gone to school, you need a job, or you need some capital to start your venture. So, in short, the failure to address the question of nation building and embarking unknowingly or unknowingly on the nation destruction is what is bringing what we are saying. Some Vegian's approach to politics lead to radicalization, which again lead to the rise of other movements. Now people are talking about Mungiki is back. And I think that's something we may talk another day. Yes. But we are moving from one crisis to another. Now, is it good for Mount Kenya that unity, we are talking about unity? I don't know. But the truth of the matter is, we have our Nyanza moment, where now it is beginning to appear. If you're coming to the core constituencies of Mount Kenya, Muranga, Kiambu, Nyeri, Laikipia, and Kirinyaga, and so on, you may not become a leader unless the dominant chiefs say you are the leader. So the whole essence of democracy as the choice based on meritocracy is going to disappear. So we need to begin thinking seriously about whether we are building the nation or we are destroying the nation. Because for me, all these processes are the destruction of the nation. Let me make the very last point very quickly.
Yes, please.
Professor here said the government has no business telling us that it does not know who is doing the abductions and who is doing this. Let me qualify it further and say the sole purpose of government is to protect lives. If the government is not able to protect one life, not two, not three, just one life, and it is proven beyond any reasonable doubt that the government was unable to protect that life, it has no business being in leadership. That is our constitution. That is who we are, and that's what ought to be.
So I want to explain to you why the reaction to Gen Z's protest will fail. You need to look at how the Russian Revolution succeeded and how all the attempt at revolution in the United Kingdom failed. In the United Kingdom, in the Russian Revolution, and even the French, why the French succeeded, was because the kings, the aristocracy then, they always reacted with extreme violence. Every time there was a demand by the citizens for a better society. But in the UK, the first reaction from the king, the last king, I think it was Gordon John or something, he produced the Magna Carta. That was a meeting point between the rulers and the ruled. In other words, every time there was a demand for something, they would try violence, then they see it doesn't work, then they retreat. And when they retreat, they bring everybody together and they find a better method. That is how the United Kingdom royalty survived. When the others fell in Europe. So what the people need to do here is to relax, is not to be offended by some cartoon. I mean, how many people are looking at this thing, you know? Sometimes I think Uhuru said he got himself out because he didn't want to see those things. So what I would suggest is they also get themselves out if they cannot stomach this satire, because this thing is satire. And if you ask me, the reason why they're not taking these people to court is because this is actually protected speech by the Constitution. Because there is something called vilification. You see, the Kativa, the Constitution limits the freedom of speech under Article 33.
Yes.
It does not extend to propaganda for war. It doesn't extend to vilification. It does all that. If you can't defeat any of this satire into any of that, you can't take them to court. You'll be wasting your time. So my advice is relax.
But they also know for sure, if you read all texts of political rebellion or resistance, satire or ridicule is the most effective means of bringing down a government because you cannot answer to satire. So when Ruto says, huyo mzee wa kitendawili, there is no way the mzee of kitendawili can report back. And the Gen Z say Kasongo, he doesn't know what it is. How do you respond? You try to respond. Now in political activism, satire or ridicule is the most effective weapon, and therefore it cannot be tried in law court because it does not come straight in something that you can substitute. And two, even as you are taking people to court, they are laughing because it is a joke in court and outside court. So in a sense, that's where the dilemma comes in. You cannot punish satire by abduction or death.
But then the best thing is to ignore it, because the moment you terminate life, you can't reverse that, okay? So the grievance which exists, it becomes now an enmity. You know, you enlarge it, you create it. And that creation is sometimes it can go out of control. You see, why you should never follow that path. The reason why mandaras are enjoined for life, because the moment you kill, you can't stop.
You can't stop.
You have to continue feeding the beast. Sometimes these guys they will wake up and they just want to kill someone. So that method is not a proper way of dealing with what are you calling it? With the people who don't like you, or with the people who have a different opinion. The best thing is always to listen to the reasons for their dissent. And then just address those reasons. Leave them alone. Just address the reasons for dissent. But also what I'm finding is, personally, I think the president is surrounded by people who simply don't like him.
Okay.
Because with the supporters, like the ones who are in Wetangula's funeral, then the president does not need any enemies. No. With the friends like those,
no, we don't need enemies.
The president does not need enemies, because those people are taking every opportunity to incite the country against the president.
Okay.
And the same thing if you look at his economic advisors. If you have an economic advisor who is telling you to raise taxes when the economy is facing depression, that person doesn't like you because he knows you are collapsing the economy. You are increasing cost of doing business. When your economy is in trouble and someone tells you to raise cost of production by raising price of energy, that person doesn't like you. That person wants to go down. You don't need a PhD in economics to know what to do when the economy is underperforming and when the economy is heating up. There are tools to either suppress inflation or increase the circulation in the market so that people either can open their own businesses because people have the ability to buy, or they can expand existing businesses. You don't need who advised the president, for example, the Asola Fund, when he started it, who advised him to lend the people 500, 1,000? Because that money, what he could have done was very easy, place it with, for example, the Cooperative Bank or KCB. They have a history of lending to micro enterprises. Because this is what you are looking. You are looking to transform a micro enterprise to a small scale enterprise and eventually to a medium enterprise. So you give a bank that 15 billion. They know how to identify people who can actually move that. that money. But you see, they denied the president that information, and they told him to lend the hustlers 500 bob, I think 200 shillings, deliberately. Because those are very well educated Kenyans. You can't tell me the former governor of the central bank, I mean, he's a graduate of Harvard, of all the places. Okay, these are highly educated people. Okay. But I think I want to use a different term. They are highly learned. Because the problem is with the people who are learned and not educated. You see, education is what is left after you forgot what you learned. It appears to me the president is surrounded by very learned people and who are partially or not educated at all.
Talking about that, Prof, as you enter the home stretch of this conversation briefly, you started by saying you have your doubts about our candidate, Kenya's candidate for the AUC, and I also pick your minds, Professor Naituli, on that. As we enter the home stretch very briefly, you are still holding that opinion despite the support?
No, I have said this before, and I want to repeat it. I would do extremely very well as a consultant if Raila Odinga is the chairman of the African Union. Yeah, because I know him, and he knows I know something about the African Union. People in my family served for African Union for 5 years. I am one of those who built the African Union. So I'll take my CV to him and I'll get a good job with him, a consultancy. But let me speak as a Pan-Africanist. We have a population of African presidents who will vote because deputy presidents or representative or president don't vote. So the president has to vote. President William Ruto will have vote. My friend Abraham Kidiki cannot go to Addis Ababa to vote on behalf of President William Ruto. No, it doesn't take that way. So presidents will have to vote. And what presidents are we talking about? What is the voter, what is the character of the voter? After the death of Cameroon's Paul Biya, Museveni being one of the very oldest, oldest, let me use that double emphasis, very oldest, president of the land, the average age of an African president is below 60. Are you telling me that they will sit there as African president to hire a CEO at 80? For God's sake, look at me and my suit. I'm in that interviewing panel, and I am 60, and I'm going to hire somebody at 80 to be my CEO. The James Mwangi of Equity, the Kibara of housing finance, the Kiboros of whoever. This country needs to come to its senses. Don't make fools of us and make fools of the world. Let's be sincere to ourselves. Even if Raila is appointed at 80, I'll be happy for him, but to be weeping for Africa.
Briefly?
I won't have a comment there, but I can comment on if I can advise the president on these arrangements. I think he should still try to come back to Mount Kenya. I'm trying to look at the votes we got. I was in Azimio. The vote we got in Nyanza is the same as vote the Mount Kenya gave to Raila Odinga. So even if you have to give the president all those votes, and then he doesn't get anything in this side, it makes no difference.
Okay.
So what I'm saying here is I hope Raila gets the job. I mean, I don't know. Personally, I hope we get it. But if what... is it Thabo Mbeki? No, not Thabo Mbeki. I mean, the president...
Cyril Ramaphosa.
If what Cyril Ramaphosa said is true, if that's not artificial intelligence, that the SADC supports in Djibouti, then we will be in trouble. Because SADC has 16 countries.
And we have 16 French-speaking countries.
And then there is 17 Muslim countries, including the French ones. So that's become 33 votes.
Yes.
And I think you need 34 to win in the first round.
Yes.
So that is where the danger lies, in my opinion. If what Ramaphosa, the president of South Africa, said, if that is not artificial intelligence, if that is true, then we have a reason to get worried. But the other ways, Raila shouldn't get that job as a Pan-Africanist.
I like how...
I like Kenyans. He's speaking double tongue. Let's be clear. Because I think that man has done great things for this country, and I speak at the bottom of my heart. I voted for him this year, and he was a president. I would vote for him again. But it is not important for Kenya to play its own local politics within the context of Pan-Africanism. Because we are looked upon. Yeah, we are looked upon. We started Pan-Africanism. Jomo Kenyatta was one of the conveners of the Manchester Pan-African Congress that set the pace for the liberation of this country. He was a young man that time, not an old man. So we have a responsibility to Pan-Africanism, because at 80, and you are supposed to serve for 8 years. What are we talking about?
88.
8 years. Really?
Professor.
Are we serious people? Really?
Really? Indeed. That is Professor Peter Kagwanja, policy advisor. Thank you so much, Prof, for joining us. As well as Professor Gitile Naitili, political analyst. Thank you so much, Prof, for always joining us as well. Gentlemen, we thank you for your insight and for the conversation tonight on 2025 Political Intro. I believe you've learned something. As always, we try to bring these conversations to you because they matter to you and I. Thank you for watching. I am George Maringa. On Zen language interpretation has been Catherine Simaloy. Good night from Nairobi.